Big news in the bike industry, there is a brand new KTM RC390 for 2022, and I know somebody who's especially excited about that.
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked because I owned the previous generation of this bike, and I actually haven't really made an update about this. I actually sold it a couple weeks ago, and we'll probably make another video explaining that whole situation. But yeah, I'm super stoked that there's a new version. We knew about this for a while. There were a ton of rumors. Now we have all the info here, so let's dive in, see what's up with this new RC390.
The new RC390 has brand new styling and bodywork, so it looks a lot different from the previous model. There's also some really cool colorways on it. You've got an updated chassis, big weight savings, and a lot of new rider aids available. Way more tech.
Yeah, there's a lot of tech on this bike. You guys know I'm a pretty big tech fan. We'll get to that in a little bit. But let's start off with just the general design. So the new bodywork is designed to mimic KTM's GP bikes. You can especially see that in the tank. It looks a lot like their Moto 2 and 3 bikes. And the color scheme is really cool too. There's this new orange and blue. You gotta have some orange on it because it's a KTM. But that really reminds me of the KTM Red Bull livery. So pretty cool that you've got some more racing-inspired graphics and bodywork on the new RC390.
Yeah, the orange and blue is a really good look, and also it's orange, not orange.
Whatever, you and Tommy give me crap for that all the time.
So the new bodywork also has better aerodynamics, and it has better heat management because you've got inner and outer panels on the bodywork, which also looks pretty cool. And very minimal bodywork in the rear end, so you can see that steel trellis subframe in the back, which has got a pretty badass look to it. KTM also says that the new bodywork helps with better ergonomics. I guess we'll have to throw a leg over it to see.
Yeah, I'll be interested to ride this. KTM also says that the footprint of the bike is physically bigger, the bodywork's a little bit bigger, and that should help with high-speed stability on the highway, things like that. Pretty similar design with the trellis frame compared to the outgoing model, but definitely reworked. The tail section looks a little bit different. You now actually have a true passenger seat on the back instead of the old version, which kind of had the seat streamlined into one piece in the tail. So overall, a really sharp looking bike, and yeah, definitely looks more race inspired. You have a bigger, more in your face tank, which definitely fits that super sport theme. So great looking bike in my opinion.
Yeah, a gallon more capacity on that tank. It went from 2.6 gallons to 3.6. Also, the new seats have thicker foam, so hopefully they'll be a little bit more comfortable. You've got 10 millimeters of height adjustability in the clip-ons, and there's also less hardware securing the bodywork according to KTM, so it should be easier to swap out those body panels, which if you're racing the bike is probably going to be a nice thing.
Yeah, I was constantly taking off that right side fairing on my RC390, and there were 5 bolts. I lost 2 of them, so I went to zip ties. So I'm glad to see that there's less hardware holding that on now.
Tell me a little bit about the engine.
Okay, so it's got the same exact 373cc single-cylinder 4-stroke engine, good old thumper that they've been using in the Duke 390 for a while, that they use in the old RC390, so that's unchanged. But you do have a new, bigger airbox, and that, along with new engine mapping, allows for more torque and better overall rideability. And this is the big part. KTM says that there's now increased airflow and the engine is now able to run cooler, which is huge news. If you know anything about these bikes in the past, they were notorious for running very hot. That's kind of been a KTM thing we've noticed here at the office, but specifically with this motor in the RC390, I had mine overheat a couple times, and I put a new fan on it, put a new radiator cap, and just tried to change my coolant and stay on top of it as much as possible. And whenever I made a video on that bike, you guys always asked, how has the cooling been? Have you had any overheating problems? So good to see that KTM is addressing this, and we'll just have to see in the future how that plays out to see if it actually makes a difference.
Now, the old model, like your bike, that had around about 44 horsepower, and it's the same motor, Euro 5 compliant. Any different with some of those updates, or?
No, so there hasn't been an exact horsepower or torque figure released by KTM yet. Horsepower should be right about the same since they're not saying anything about it. We'll just have to wait and see with the torque, again, because of that larger airbox and the revised throttle mapping.
Yeah, one way or another, it's probably not going to be a world of difference. Now, arguably even better than extra power is weight reduction, and this is where this bike is really going to stand out in terms of performance compared to the old model. So you have new wheels wheels that shave 7.5 pounds of unsprung weight, which is a big deal, especially on a bike that's already pretty light.
Yeah, look at those wheels. You can see right through them,
Yeah.
just like no spokes on them.
You've also got a new By-Bray?
Yeah, it's by Brembo, so it's like
Yeah.
Brembo's cheaper
By-Bray.
line, basically. By Bray, I don't know.
Yeah, so the new By-Bray brakes save 2.11 pounds over the old model, which, again, that's quite a bit.
Yeah, and I'll be curious to see what the actual changes in the brakes. You've still got a 320 millimeter disc in the front, still a 4-piston caliper, so similar setup, but they said there has been some changes made. It's not super clear what those changes are.
So a little bit more weight saving. The new trellis frame saves 3.3 pounds, and there's no weight spec for the new 2022, but in 2021 it was 329 pounds. So yeah, it's going to be a pretty light bike overall.
Yeah, good amount of weight savings. There is a bigger tank that holds an extra gallon, so we'll have to just wait and see when that full spec sheet is released what the final weight figure is.
Now in terms of suspension, you get 43 millimeter inverted open cartridge WP Apex forks, which sounds pretty similar to the suspension that was on the previous RC390, right?
Yeah, so the previous RC390 still used WP suspension components, but you had much less adjustability. So on these new cartridge forks, you can adjust the compression on the left fork and the rebound damping on the right fork. So not, completely fully adjustable where you have independent adjustments on each fork. It's kind of adjusted as a set, but still the previous generation wasn't adjustable at all in the front. So great to see that. And then you have a WP Apex rear shock. The old model also had a WP rear shock, but now you have a preload adjustment, which the old one did have, but you also get rebound damping adjustment on the rear shock as well.
Now tech, this is where Alex is going to get really excited because there's an optional quick shifter plus, which is pretty cool, but also a number of other rider aids.
Yeah, so we'll start off with the Quick Shifter Plus because quick shifters are awesome. They're super fun to use, and this one supports up and down quick shifting. So wide open throttle, you can bang through the gears, no clutch, and you don't have to close the throttle at all, up and down, and that's going to be an additional accessory. So it's not going to come stock on the bike, but it should be pretty easy to add. You also have new lean sensitive cornering ABS. The old model had ABS, but it was straight line ABS. You now have cornering ABS with a supermoto mode, so that will disable ABS on the rear wheel only and allow you to slide out the rear. Now the old RC390 had a switchable ABS as well. On their website it said you could turn off the ABS by holding a button on the dash, and that's one of the reasons I bought the bike, but I could never get it to work in the 13 or 14 months I owned the bike. So hopefully this actually works, disabling the rear wheel ABS. I never could get it to function.
And that says a lot because Alex is genuinely very much into tech. Like if there's a way to do something, Alex is gonna figure it out.
I spent hours in the garage, flipping the key on and off, doing everything I could, reading forum posts.
You've also got cornering MTC, motorcycle traction control, and there's a new TFT display. I never really paid attention to the TFT that was on your old bike, and that's probably because it wasn't that stellar.
It was a Game Boy screen.
Yeah.
It was terrible. It was this really old school, black and white with an orange backlit LCD display. This is awesome. The Duke 390 for years has been getting a beautiful TFT display, and now you finally get one here on the RC390.
Now we also want to mention briefly that there is another really cool RC that KTM is releasing right now. It's the RC125, and we're not going to get that in the US because it's too cool for us.
Yeah, we don't get any of the cool small bikes. Small bikes are so fun, and so many of these manufacturers make these really cool smaller versions of the bikes we love, and we never get to play around with them.
Yeah, I mean, 15 horsepower, a little bit over 300 pounds. It's still got the footprint of a pretty normal sized bike, but could you imagine having a little racing series with your buddies where you're just cranking on the throttle, trying to draft with each other? I mean,
it'd be great.
Little bikes are a blast. And they're
Go-kart,
cheap.
you could take it to an indoor go-kart track. There's so many things you could do with a little 125.
Yeah, so too bad for us. We don't get a fun, small, inexpensive little ripping bike, but we do get the RC390, and from everything that Alex has said, seems like a really good starter track bike. If you want to get into cornering really hard, this is a much more approachable motorcycle to do it on than a bigger, faster 600 or even a liter bike. So definitely recommend it if you're looking into track riding.
I learned so much on my KTM RC390. It was really a great training tool for me. Like I said, I moved on to something else, which we'll probably do a video on later on at some point. But the old model was great. Now you've got even more adjustability in the suspension, more tech, better looking bodywork, weight reduction. So can't really complain about that package. The only thing will be the price when it finally comes out. KTM says this will be available in March of 2022, so you do have to wait quite a bit if you want one. Then again, riding season's kind of coming to an end here in Colorado. But the old model was $5,549, and there's no pricing announced yet on this new one, but with all the added tech and features on it, I would expect the price to go up a little bit, but I'm sure it'll stay below that $6,000 mark. At least I hope it does.
Yeah, so let us know what you think in the comments below, and we'll catch you guys in the next video.
See ya.